As the sun set over the mountains, the group of friends huddled around the campfire, eager to hear the latest scary story. But little did they know that the tale they were about to hear would send chills down their spines and haunt their dreams for years to come. The story begins in a small village nestled deep in the forest. The villagers were simple folk, who lived off the land and kept to themselves. But one day, a stranger arrived in the village. He was tall and thin, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to bore into your soul. He wore a long black coat, and his face was shrouded in shadows. The villagers were wary of the stranger, but he promised them great riches if they would help him with his quest. He claimed to be searching for a rare plant that only grew in the forest, and he needed their help to find it. In exchange, he would share his wealth with them. Despite their reservations, the villagers agreed to help the stranger. They led him deep into the forest, where they searched for the elusive plant. But as the days passed, the stranger grew more and more impatient. He became irritable and short-tempered, and the villagers began to fear him. One night, the stranger disappeared into the forest, leaving the villagers alone. They waited for his return, but he never came back. As the days turned into weeks, the villagers grew more and more anxious. They searched the forest for any sign of the stranger, but he was nowhere to be found. Then, one day, a terrible storm descended upon the village. The winds howled and the rain poured down in sheets. The villagers huddled together in their homes, praying for the storm to pass. But as the night wore on, they heard a sound that chilled them to the bone. It was the sound of someone knocking at their doors. When they opened them, they found no one there. But the knocking continued, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. Suddenly, the villagers realized that the knocking was coming from the forest. They gathered together, armed with torches and weapons, and set out into the stormy night. As they approached the heart of the forest, they heard a strange chanting coming from deep within the trees. The chanting grew louder and more frenzied, and the villagers realized that it was the voice of the stranger. Trembling with fear, they crept closer, until they saw the most horrifying sight of their lives. The stranger stood in the center of a circle of fire, surrounded by a group of shadowy figures. They were chanting in an ancient language, and as they chanted, the stranger began to change. His skin grew dark and leathery, his eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and his body twisted and contorted into a monstrous shape. The villagers could only watch in terror as the creature turned on them, its eyes burning with a malevolent fire. The creature attacked the villagers, tearing them apart with its razor-sharp claws. It seemed invincible, impervious to their weapons and their prayers. And as it devoured its victims, it let out a terrible scream that echoed through the forest. In the end, only a handful of villagers survived the attack. They fled the forest, never to return, and the creature was never seen again. But to this day, the villagers tell the tale of the stranger in the black coat, and the horrors that lurk deep within the forest. And when the winds howl and the rain pours down, they still hear the sound of the knocking, and the chanting of the creature that stalks the night.